it's okay to have that dream of being a star, of being the anomaly, of being, the unicorn. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. We all have that feeling and that thing, but you have to understand how to play this game. You have to understand how to treat people. You have to understand how to be a professional. And those are things you have to practice in. You have to be willing to learn and engage. And really, it's only the people that take themselves seriously, conduct themselves seriously, behave like decent human beings, and build those connections and relationships in life that has lasting careers. It might be a bit harder at the start, but there is a thing to say about the endurance of the profession.
Ladies and gents, from Mzansi to the world, welcome to it. In studio today with us is a dynamic leader shaping the economy of the arts and culture sector in South Africa. I'm joined by Jessica Denyschen, CEO of the Arts and Culture Trust here in South Africa, and very excited to have you here in studio with us, Jess. So everybody back home listening, watching, wherever you're dialing in for, buckle up, let's get into it. Get ready to ignite your light so we can keep it burning bright. You're locked in with us here on EXC-i8. Jessica, thank you so much for making the time to come out and have a chat with us today.
Yeah, awesome. I'm really excited to engage with you guys. I'm loving the philosophy around the work you do. And just hanging out, and let's do it.
Dude, and I just want to say I'm loving your vibe and philosophy, right? Just the feeling that I get from you, as a CEO of an organization, you expect somebody to be more sort of, have that sort of typical composition of a CEO, but you're so laid back, down to earth, look really cool. And also from talking to you, you're not just somebody who was put in a position, but you actually have a background in the arts and culture sector.
Yeah, I've had a pretty unconventional way to where I am today, and I think one thing that I've really tried to keep is just the person that I am.
Yeah.
I think, there's a lot of expectation, even for women in leadership positions, that you've got to be a particular way, present in a particular way. But, I work in the arts, and if that can't stay within me and in the way I express myself, then, what's the arts for?
Yeah.
Definitely, like, not a conventional pathway for me to get to leadership. I grew up in the arts. I performed as a little girl.
Yeah.
I grew up in theatre, television, literature. I really tried and tested it all, ran my own businesses, really went through, the pains of also being an artist in this country and the struggles of being an artist in this country.
Yeah.
And just grateful for that, because I feel like I can step into this position and be in this position with real empathy.
Yeah.
And just an understanding of what it really is like on the ground to keep it going, to make it work, what the challenges are. And then I'm in a fortunate position to now present new opportunities to artists, which I think is, just the most incredible part of my job.
Yeah, for sure. And if we could just explore, a little bit of your history, just before, you come into the Arts and Culture Trust, what were you doing? What was life like for you at that stage?
Pretty wild. I had just finished writing a book of poetry that I published, so I was in the writing game.
Yeah.
I was heading my production company. I was producing content around education, art, theatre. I shoot, so camera, editing, all of that. And I was also managing, which is still in existence, a dance archive, which basically takes care of about 50 years of South African contemporary dance.
Yes.
And any artist would know this. That sounds like a lot, but as a working artist, that's kind of the reality of what you do. There are many balls in the air. Then COVID hit in 2020.
So you did quite a lot of things, right? And I know there's, I guess, could you call it maybe your core focus area would have been dance, or earlier on in your career? Is that correct?
So theatre, physical theatre
Okay.
and dance, definitely. I think I had a very strong upbringing there, but I did a double major when I was at Wits.
Okay.
So television was always in there, and I was always trying to see how to bring these worlds together, how to bring these passions
Yeah.
together. So they've kind of come hand in hand alongside my journey. And I think it's afforded me some brilliant and innovative opportunities to do things that haven't been done, which
Yeah.
is really fantastic.
And what would have been like the typical thought process behind maybe putting together a production or an event or something that you would have done like earlier on, within your own production company?
Yeah, I mean, like I did such a strange variety of things. I think I've really always been interested in innovation and like how do we use the medium of film in a kind of a more interesting way and more engaging way?
Yeah.
How do we bring audiences together through the medium of film but also live performance?
Yeah.
So I think like one of the things that really resonates with me was a production that I did with performing artists, a gallery in Glasgow, a live performance, interactive technology, and using kind of film as a medium and technology as a medium for audiences to speak
Yeah.
to each other. And I think like the intersection of the collaboration has always been for me the interesting part in what film can bring to theatre, what theatre can bring to film, and what the performers and technologists can bring to a space.
Yeah.
So I think like that's really the thinking process I like behind it and how to do it in a creative way.
Yeah.
So not just shooting for the sake of shooting, but what is it that we're making and creating and what's interesting about it and artistic about it.
Yeah. I think like what's interesting about it is the journey you've had, and you know what it feels like, right, to be an artist and a creative and try and forge a way. And it's one of those things that growing up, if you tell your parents that you want a career in that space, they sort of feel sorry that no, my child, why, right? So what have been like some of the most painful things that you've had to endure and encounter, in your journey thus far?
I think I am fortunately and unfortunately quite stubborn, and I don't like no for an answer.
Right.
Like I've been that way since I was small. So whether or not the family thought this might be the best path for me or not, it was going to happen. And I think there was an acceptance in that. It was almost like there was no other option. There's no plan B, because
Right.
this is it. It's like part of my identity, part of who I am. So fortunate in that sense. Obviously, we have hurdles depending on where you sit in life. So like getting through tertiary and paying for those fees, it's a massive thing. Especially if you don't come from a trust fund or from a space where that's been provided for because your parents were able.
Sure.
So like I had to hustle my way through university to pay fees to get there. But luckily, to have the kind of support and rally to go, Jess, you're doing this thing, just carry on, make it happen. I also kind of came out to my family when I was quite young. So we had a bit of a separation. So I had a period of like doing this thing on my own and really feeling that kind of isolation.
Yeah.
But I think that with the art making, with the process, with trying to really pay your way through this thing so that you can have a qualification, so that you can have a foot in the sector, I think was an important kind of growth curve for me. And then the reality of a degree being finished and you've got to pay your own rent. Not living with mom since like high school. You've really got to understand what impact that has and what it means. So how do you survive as an artist? How do you do it? So I'm quite fortunate actually that during university I already had to learn that rhythm of bringing money in with the craft that I was studying, because I think a lot of people, once they stop studying and they only start there, it's a lot harder to actually get that process going and then to sustain that over many, many years. And like you said, like I've had the struggles artists have had, like at the end of the month, like the bank account is X, rent is due, living on toast and beans. What's the next step here? And how long can I sustain this? Like how long does the passion and the finances weigh out with each other? So,
it's a gruesome battle, right? And it's a relentless one if you're truly passionate about what you're doing. And I experienced that as well. And often you ask the question, how do you survive, or what sustains you? It goes more than beyond the finances sometimes and what you get out of it from a monetary value. But when you see an impact that you've had in someone's life, or joy that you've brought to somebody who's witnessed your craft or whatever, it's those things that gives you that little bit of an extra push, and you feel like, okay, I'm definitely doing what I'm supposed to be doing, I'm on the right track. But it only carries you for, so long or so far before you start feeling the weight of the financial pressure. And was that something that you experienced as well at some point?
I think mine came as it did for the rest of the world during COVID.
Okay.
Because I was quite content to be on this journey and to actually be in control of how I earn my money and what happens there. I think a lot of people have this illusion that when you have a job and a paycheck, particularly in this day and age, and as we're seeing the economy change, as we're seeing AI change the world, that's security. But that could also disappear from under your feet very, very easily.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that I'll always hold on to is that sense of the entrepreneurial nature, because regardless of the security you think you might have, things can change at a heartbeat. And I think artists are actually so well positioned to carry that spirit in a changing world. So when COVID hit, the production world dried up. You would know that any live performance, anything related to arts and culture as a human activity basically dried up. And I couldn't see myself entering an average corporate job. Not that there's disrespect for that. It's just an alignment and a deep spiritual alignment for me with the arts, where that would have been soul crushing, literally, and not sustainable in any case. And I was fortunate enough to be aware of an opportunity at the Arts and Culture Trust at the time. Sent in an application. It didn't have a hope in hell because COVID had just hit. Who's going to hire new people? And I think there was a bit of destiny and fate in there as well to go, here is this opportunity. And I think 4th of May, in the height of the initial scare of COVID, I started my first job where I had a boss and I wasn't my own boss. So it's been super wild and super interesting. I
want to come back to that, that switch from going from being your own boss to having a boss and being where you are now. But something I think that's very important that you touched on and mentioned is having sort of that entrepreneurial spirit is very integral and important when it comes to survival and just being able to make a way, in the creative industry. How can an artist develop that side of them? How important is it to be able to manage yourself? And what are those key things that an artist should look out for, needs to do to be able to hone in on that entrepreneurial side?
I think the acknowledgement first is that you need to eat and you need to live and you need to make some decisions about the course of your life. We would all love to be artists for the sake of making art. And maybe one day in a perfect world we'll get there. Maybe a bit of Ireland, Irish spirit will move in here, and artists will get paid to actually do the important work that they do. But you have to distinguish very clearly for yourself your priorities in taking care of yourself. So strategically, how do you look at what is going to pay the bills versus what's the call of your soul? And you can't really divorce those in this country at this stage. And it's not a question of selling out. I think that's absolute nonsense. I think it's very smart to take care of yourself. I think it's very important to take care of yourself. And I think it's very important to come up with a strategy where you can take care of yourself and craft out the time to make the work you want to make. And as an artist, your work might not always resonate with the masses when you want it to, and it's not always going to sell when you want it to sell. So that work you need to be very patient with. You need to give it love and space and time. You need to be your own patient investor there and committer there. And for the rest of it, you need to engage with the world because, unfortunately, it's a capitalist society. It's a reality. And I think as long as you deny that, I'm not saying accept it, artists must have the fire and the fight.
For sure.
But it's your reality. You need to take care of yourself. We see too many artists die in the trenches because this is something that's not spoken about, addressed. and treat it with like humility and empathy. Like this is the world we live in.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. You mentioned the word divorce, and I was immediately triggered because I think of the amount of times my wife could have divorced me because I refused to give up on my dreams and my passions. And I mean, we went through it. We went through the most for a large part of our lives, you know. So just like how you said that, you know, for you, there wasn't really a plan B, right? You were going to make it in this, you were stubborn, and this is the thing. And very similar, you know, it didn't matter what we had gone through. I just could not let go of knowing that I need to make a career. I need to make something happen in here. And with that, I think when you start to see the needs that are at hand, that you got to eat, that you got to pay rent and things like that, if you really want to make it, you'll find a way to, I think just naturally that entrepreneurial edge or spirit kicks in and takes over. And you start seeing, okay, where are your skills, your strong points? How can you sell this to make something of it? Yeah.
And I think, like you spoke about, the kind of skills artists need, like the entrepreneurial, that's the way. That's one of the ways. But it's that there's something internally, and my team and I spoke about it a bit. It's like, you know, what does it mean to have responsibility? And it's not something you can teach someone. And I think being obsessed with the arts and being aligned with the arts there's something indescribable in it. You have got to have such a hunger for it that you're not willing to stray from that path, even though it presents challenges. So you can develop entrepreneurial spirit, which will give you more diversification and opportunity. But it is really that connecting to your why and keep on trying to figure out what that fire is, because that makes you stubborn enough to grow the grit, to work through the failures. Because it's not, you know, that it's not a clear pathway. You get told way more many times than yes, and you get turned down many more times. But inadvertently, people that stick at the pathway and also adjust and learn from these experiences and don't let it stop them in their tracks, those are the people that go the distance in this industry.
Yeah.
People that give up early on because you hear no or because it's hard, they kind of fade into different sectors, and then they have the benefit of the soft skills that they learned in the arts to take into these other sectors, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But the ones that are going to go the distance are the ones that are going to stand up after the nose, that are going to innovate, that are going to diversify, and going to create their own pathway, because it doesn't just come to you.
Absolutely, because I think like a lot of those hardships and even though the ones that you experience, you know, on your journey, while you were talking about that, I was thinking like, when I was in that phase, and maybe this happens for a lot of people as well, right? And you're going through the hard times and everything just seems to be against you. I don't know, maybe I'm just crazy. Maybe it takes a little bit of craziness to, you know, make it in the creative industry. But I often think of the end story, right? And just imagine, you know, how many people you're going to inspire when they hear what you had to go through. So you got to, you know, go through this. It's the school of hard knocks when you come out on the other side. So you start writing your story almost, you know, from the end backwards. Be like, this is where I am now, but I know where I'm going to finish. So I got to push through. This is chapter 4, right? So I don't know if you had the similar thing. Like I said, maybe I'm crazy, because in that I found like, hey, you know, I'm starting to put together my own movie here, my own pursuit of happiness.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm fond of the word crazy, because I mean, like, I definitely have a bit of that delulu in me, but also like to think about it as like divine inspiration. Like there's got to be a reason that we feel this strongly about pursuing the path that we do. And I love that about writing your narrative, because I think often when you struggle through the things and when you're in the struggle, it's so hard to accept it, because you just want to be through it. You want to be on the other side, or you just want things to be simpler and easier. And I kind of had like the own narrative of like a book in my head, because I love literature so much. And I'm like, would I read a book based on a character where everything was just like smooth sailing all the time? Yeah. That didn't have flaws and struggles, and that, you know, just got things right. I'm like, no, that would be the most boring book ever. Why do I want my life to be that? And I think it's like just a creative way to go, these things are okay. They're building. And I don't know if it's been like that for you, but sometimes along the way, after many struggles, you go, oh, that's why all of that had to happen.
Oh, yeah.
But it's hard to accept that and see it and know it when you're in it, because you don't know what that point is yet. But I love that mystery.
Yeah.
And the more you do it, and the more the different changes in pathway and failings and learnings come together, the more the good stuff happens, and the more you can say, oh, that's why it happened. Like, you get practiced in that belief, and that's awesome. Then it becomes exciting.
Yeah.
And you can accept the the rough stuff you're going through.
Yeah.
And you just get up and you wake up and you try again.
That's it. It was exactly like that for me. And I even said it to Gio, my partner, that at the point when they approached me with the idea to come on board with them on the podcast and host it, I was on the brink of giving up, although I've always been on the brink of giving up, but I keep going, so I completely get that. You just push through, and you see how sort of, the road you're going on goes through, certain valleys and curves, and it comes up and it goes down. And then you've done things that you didn't think you were going to do, but you've learned new skills along the way. I'm still doing what I want to do and what I'm passionate about, but I'm finding different ways of surviving through it and making a means and things like that, which leads to the point where I am here where I am now. And then you look back and you go, all of that stuff was necessary. I've met so many people. I've helped so many people. I've gained so much insight and knowledge in the industry that I'm in a position now where I can share that knowledge and I can speak to other people about this, not just in this industry. I think what's so cool, what's really cool about struggling in the creative industry is because you learn to have that entrepreneurial edge, right? And you develop that skill, the more and more you survive and the more you have to reinvent yourself and become innovative, you gain an understanding of multiple different industries, and you can relate to other people in any sector, because a struggle is a struggle, right? It might be called by a different name, but there are moments in that journey where you sort of feel like you've met at the same, on the same page or at the same pathway as somebody in any other industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think especially in the arts, the perception of what an artist is, how the sector functions, how leadership in the sector works is like, I think from other sectors, it's not very known, it's not very understood, but the common thing that we have is exactly that, the kinds of struggles and the kind of human experience that we go through. And I've spoken to leaders across different sectors, agriculture, finance, whatever the case may be. And it really is that, like, how are you going through the thing you're going through, whether that's a work challenge, a human challenge, an economic challenge. I just love that people feel often comfortable around artists once they start speaking to them, as opposed to seeing them as those strange ones out there. It's like we really are able to bring the humanity out, I think, a lot faster because it's the world that we're sensitized to. And I think there's so much value in us exchanging in our human values around the issues that we have, regardless of kind of what sector we come from, what leadership style we come from. And I hope that's something that, we keep, and I think it's going to become our superpower as artists as well. Yeah. And we're seeing this as we're interfacing more with technology, more with AI, more with the changing world of skills. The industrial side of things are shifting dramatically. It's like, how do humans engage with each other? And I'm so excited for that side of it, to go like, hey, we are now the most equipped to actually deal with this new narrative and to create connection meaningfully again for us as a human species. Yeah.
You know what? You've hit the nail on the head, when you say that people feel more comfortable when they hear that you're an artist, right? And I don't know, it relaxes them. Maybe they feel that there's no judgment there, or if anybody understands struggle, it's an artist. I've had so many people, just strangers. As soon as I would tell them that, no, I make music for a living, or produce, or I teach kids hip hop, they just relax and they start talking more about, certain things that they've gone through, or a time when they were passionate about something and they wish they had kept at it, or could they have done things differently. So there definitely is something, like you said, there's some hidden gift, something special that we have that make people just feel more comfortable. I felt it instantly. When you walk through the doors and, you dressed, casual and cool and swag, love the kicks, and not in a suit, I was like, oh yeah, This is my people here.
Yeah, it's and it took a bit of like, you can quickly fall, for me, like into the trap of going, oh my gosh, I have to now address a particular, especially because it came so quickly for me. I didn't grow up being nurtured into a CEO position in a traditional sense, and I had to also just quickly let go of that, going, I'm doing my job, and my job requires me to be myself, and if I'm going to be thinking about what I'm wearing, or if I'm going to be thinking about things that are in the job that I need to be doing trivial, then I'm already missing a beat. Yeah. So I kind of just went like, you just carry yourself, like whether you're dressed in a suit or not, you carry yourself with dignity, you carry yourself with humility, you meet people where they are and you get the job done. Like that's what it is. And then it's okay to relax into yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, okay, we've gotten to know a little bit about your journey, right, and what led you to where you are now, okay? But I want to know, like, moments before you get in, you make that crossover, right? I don't know if you could call it corporate or whatever, but you go from what you were doing into the Arts and Culture Trust. How does that happen? Like, how does that opportunity come along?
I think a bit of a weird combination of skills and then luck. So, when you apply to a job, you might only have like 60 to 80% of the criteria. And I just like applied for this job and I kind of met all the criteria just because I've had such a wild and interesting past. So I've been able to engage in so many different ways. And, I've had a reputation in this sector for starting new things and for doing things a bit differently. And I think that positioned me kind of really well. And the role that I was going to step into was a creative role. So it was going to be in marketing, communications, and obviously in a sector that I'm familiar with and I love. So the transition in that sense was not far removed from what I was doing, just in a different format. Right. What makes Arts and Culture Trust so interesting, and what I also only later realized the deeper I got into it, is that, in my mind, it's very rooted in arts and culture. Okay. It wasn't going to be a typical office job because for some of the reason I get the heebie-jeebies when I think about sitting still for too long. But I also knew that, there were long-standing corporate partners. We'd worked with the Trust Ancestry, I'd worked with government, with different bodies, with telecommunications, with international, excuse me, with international bodies as well. So I knew there was going to be an interesting dynamic around the way that the trust works. So for somebody that didn't want to go into a corporate job, it was a good hook. Okay. But then stepping into the role of CEO, I didn't quite realize before that how much corporate work there would be and how much government aligned work there would be, over and above just working with artists and working within communities and organizations. Yeah. And I think it's been such an incredible journey and uncovering to go, where in life do you work in corporate? Not that we work for government, but you work with corporate, you work with government, you work with community, you work with individuals. Sure. It's quite a wild combination, and also skills, like you said, that you're developing so many different tracks in your narrative that lead you to the next steps of your life. So I think I had an easy in, and then my sense of responsibility is large, and therefore how you take on responsibility grows, and also like just as a curious human being to understand how it works. Because if as an artist and a practicing artist, I can understand how this beast works, how these entities work that artists sometimes rely on in the spaces that they work in, then I can better translate that to artists as well, and vice versa. So I think I was very interested in understanding those really kinds of dynamics.
Really cool. Like I'm such a visual person, right? And I'm picturing this image of you like in your office, maybe just newly promoted into the CEO job, or maybe after a couple of weeks, then you just have this moment like where you sitting there going, man, I've been CEO of my own life for the longest time, but this is a different kind of CEO. Like, this is a new level, right? Different things.
No, I think there's something about being responsible for yourself. And I was fortunate enough to employ on contract basis over the years, like many people. So like I was proud of that work. But for the first time, you're in a position where you're at an organization with a legacy, which is now spanning 31 years. This organization was built on the shoulders of giants. Madiba endorsed this organization when it started. It was known as Arts and Culture Trust of the President during his tenure, those first 4 years. And I think like that is really the thing that sank in for me the most. It's like, how do I carry this spirit of Madiba, of our country and its developing democracy? How do I carry the narrative of our artists in my way, built on what others have built before me, and then to also know that I need to leave something that the next leaders will then be able to carry forward. And I think that was really the like, oh wow,
very interesting.
This is so much bigger than I could have anticipated, and it was all in the feeling.
Yeah. So you speak about like the magnitude of the position you're in and the institution or the organization that you're with, right? And the legacy attached to it, Madiba's vision and things like that. Now, I got to be careful with how I phrase this question, right? Would you not think, or would that same kind of mentality or principle not be practiced, or should it not be practiced with the Department of Arts, Sports and Culture, right? And what differentiates, the Arts and Culture Trust between the Department of Arts, Sports and Culture? Is it Sports, Arts and Culture?
Yeah. I mean, like these are not questions I'm afraid of, and I think they're so interesting because we all have perceptions about things work and who does what, and we do know government hasn't had a good rap. Like if you just follow artists following the department on social media.
Right.
It's HARI or the National Arts Council, and those are government bodies. They're there to serve, and they're built on the constitution of the country. But we also know we live in a complex country, and the entire country was affected by the scourge of corruption, and various other factors. It's not just that on its own. And I think it's very easy to overlook some of the incredible work that's being done at government level. So I think, the big difference between Arts and Culture Trust and the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture is we are a non-profit public benefit organization. We're registered in a trust, so we can function totally independent of government. And that was done for a reason in 1994 as we transitioned into democracy.
Yeah.
And that was because from a national department level, there was no transition plan yet for arts and culture. And Dr. Ivan May, who was at Nedbank at the time, and leadership from Sun International alongside Madiba, probably on the golf course, all went like, we need to protect this, because if we really look at who's advocated for democracy in our country globally, if we really look at what protest means, it's like the arts and culture took care of us in this transition. It also created a space for healing pre and post democracy. So both in the protest and the hope, and then in the healing and the continuous healing that we're still doing. So who's taking care of the artists in the transition? So the trust was born with that in mind, and then to also advise on certain aspects of what government could instill before the official department kind of took over the reins and instituted the government mandate. And I think like that early period was very critical. And I think, there are issues. There are very many to serve, and not necessarily the available resources. That doesn't mean the resources are not there, by the way.
Yeah.
But I think our sector struggles in its coordination. And strangely enough, something that should be natural for us, like collaboration and sharing and Ubuntu, for some other reason, it's harder to translate when it comes to standing together to unlock more.
Fascinating.
And I think, we as civil society and artists and arts organizations as part of civil society do have the power to coordinate. And Arts and Culture Trust plays a role in that. And as much as we try to do, we can always do better and more, and it's never completely solved. And part of my sleepless nights is, how can we do these things better? And while I'm here, because leadership is not forever in an organization, is there something that we can inspire to enable this coordination better for our sector? Government can do what it does, but it can also only respond to what it's being given. And if it's being met with outcry, that's one part. But if it's not being met with a plan that's coming from sector and endorsed by sector, it's quite difficult for them to action.
Wow.
That doesn't mean that there are not people that are, creating nonsense.
Yeah.
But I think like that's what being in this role's taught me, is that the layers are much deeper than that, and the mechanisms to affect change at government level take time. The wheel turns slowly, and it requires consistency. That's why I'm a fan of working on the ground, and that's why I'm a fan of working with people that can affect change within their own community, with support, or being able to do that. So you've got to like eat this thing from both sides. And if you really want to work with government at that level, you've got to understand how to work with government at that level. So, it's a paradox, but I think the more we speak about it and the more we educate ourselves about how the thing actually works, instead of just shouting into a void, we might start seeing a bit of traction and coordination.
For sure. I hope that we can get there. And it's quite a interesting, and it's a sobering thought when you realize that you had to make this trust independent in order to protect its integrity and to honor its legacy, right? Because the government can be super dodgy, right, across different departments. And to me already, right, I can see a clear difference between the care, or rather there's just so much more care in the Arts and Culture Trust than there is with the department. Like, I'm speaking to somebody who's the CEO of that trust, who's truly passionate about what she does. And, she's not just speaking words for the sake of being politically correct. And this is what I have to say because I'm in that position. Because you can speak for hours and hours about what it takes to make it in the industry and what you've had to endure, the road that you've run and things like that. Whereas maybe somebody in your position in the department would not be able to have that kind of connection or relation. And do you think those are some of the things that is being done correctly and right at the Arts and Culture Trust as opposed to the department? Whereas you guys are actively, it seems maybe there's more like you in the Arts and Culture Trust that come from the background, that are creatives, and not just, people put into random positions or random people put into positions for the sake of filling a position.
Yeah, I think like our sector is rich with, excuse me, with people that are like-minded. I know arts leaders in this space that really, truly care and have a duty of care towards our artists. And I think like that is the most encouraging and incredible thing to see, and to also see how it's changed. We've got young female leaders under the age of 40 heading up organizations with a different perspective, a different care, very much a human-centered approach to how we look at it. And sometimes it's in conflict with systems. Sometimes it's in conflict with how things need to be done. Sometimes it slows things down because it's really looking at the nurturing level. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think that that's a good thing. I think we are infiltrating the sector and leadership with heart. And I think government's also changed quite a bit. It has to follow the mandate of the government of the time. It has to follow the legislation. It has to follow the budgets. It has to do very many things. And I think it's a lot harder at that level to practice a duty of care towards the individual. And I think that's why organizations like Arts and Culture Trust and other community arts organizations, MPOs, NGOs, of which there are plenty across the country, are doing such incredible work on ground level to connect the thread, and at advocacy level, because the individual can't speak to the state. And I think we all need to play our part to create a through line. And there where artists feel the state is failing, how do we create and innovate, and with that entrepreneurial spirit, come together to create our own opportunities?
Yeah.
And I think we're being enabled and mobilized to do that a lot more productively. Technology's changed. We can now do things we could never have done before. We can reach different markets, and we can really transform our lives a lot more proactively in the doing and in educating ourselves, because the information is abundant.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. So everything that you said, like I really want to explore that a little bit more. Some of the work that you're doing on the ground level, and some of the different innovative ways that you've implemented to help the youth, or help provide an assist for somebody who wants to make something out of their lives in this sector. Currently, it's very daunting for young people because all they see is red tape everywhere, right? So how do we find places or institutions that have maybe a little bit more green tape than red tape? I don't know if green tape is a thing, but we'd like to see more green tape and less red tape. We understand that there are systems and things put in place, protocols and stuff, but sometimes it feels like at some point it's too much and it's very limiting, and it can sort of break the back of somebody who's really got something great that they're putting together, just to be stopped at the door by some BS red tape measure.
Yeah, I mean, like it's totally a challenge, and I think because you will always have a sponsor or a partner or investor involved in enabling these opportunities, it's really a tricky game to play, because governance has not just changed for NPOs, NGOs, but what's required from corporates to really enable the rest of the country has gotten so much more intense. And to be able to do the work that we need to do to enable other work has also intensified.
Yeah.
And you can't step away from that, and you can't ignore that. But it's something that we speak about. It's like, how are we creating barriers to entry by the M&E, by the governance, by all of these factors, but then you also can't break away from that. So how do we guide our artists to be more prepared for these? How do we support our artists to be more prepared for these? And I have seen a trend amongst organizations really doing a lot more of the hand-holding and the lead-in and the support in that. Unfortunately, it's not something that artists are going to be able to break away from, but I think it's the responsibility of the organization presenting the opportunity to also stimulate the access to that opportunity and to understand what the barriers are and how to address those barriers. And that's going to be part of the strategic planning, because you cannot put a proposal out to a township and people cannot access the internet to do an online application, for example. So we try to mediate these, especially when we're doing deep rural work for our scholarship program, when we are trying to onboard kids that wouldn't normally see this opportunity, have access to it. We work with community art centers and facilitators to go out to schools and libraries, to take devices with internet, to actually enable the kids to be able to do their onboarding. And once they're on the program, what is the responsibility for them to participate, and how do we support that? And to also understand that there is mobility and agency within that kid and within that community as well. Is that there is never not nothing. So how do we address that mindset of, I am not an island, I live within a community. Within the community, if I express my need and my intention and my pathway, I will most likely find the kind of support I need to facilitate the next step and the next step.
Sure.
We need to nourish and teach that as a core, as opposed to just the side of enabling through a data or a this or that. Like, how do I find the solution? How do I become brave enough to go and ask?
No, absolutely. So I want to give you like a very real world scenario. I'm going to use an example of something that happened, earlier on in my career. And let's use that as an exercise, right? Where you can point out the flaws, what went wrong, what could have been done. And, maybe there's things in there that, I could learn from, and somebody, back home could learn from this as well. So that's actually the reason why I want to bring this up now. Is something that I prepared to do, but as you're explaining the processes and things like that, I felt, okay, maybe there were steps that I miscalculated or did incorrectly, and it would be maybe wrong to just put the blame solely on the government and their failures. It's like the easy scapegoat. It's the easy thing to do, right? So a couple of years ago, I think it was back in like 2016, I put together with some colleagues of mine, friends of mine, an event that was going to take place in Jane First, right? Very rural, it's out there. The reason for that is because we felt that Joburg, every young person is putting on an event around the corner. We really want to develop the youth. And we thought the best place to sort of try and make a mark and a name for ourselves is go where the youth is not being developed enough in what we're doing. We spoiled in abundance in Joburg in this, right? So why don't we put on a concert in Jane First? We can bring a local artist from Joburg who's huge, who's well known, KO at the time. So they know his music, they love his music, but with that stage, we'll give the platform to other young aspiring artists who are locals to Mpumalanga and Jane First. Sorry, Limpopo. Please forgive me, people of Jane First. It's in Limpopo, right? But we were targeting Limpopo and Mpumalanga, and so we just felt that, that it paints the picture that we want, right? And we teamed up with the local municipality. There were things that were promised on their end, like securing the stadium, some assistance with marketing with the local shops and things like that. We didn't rely on them too much. We just wanted the stadium to be delivered, and we put up the funds privately. We got some sponsors and all of that to do marketing, flyers, things like that. And I could go more at length, but to cut a long story short, we followed the processes. We had meetings in town every week, driving from Joburg every week to meet with the local council and things like that. And 2 days before, they told us that they couldn't secure the stadium because it belonged to a municipality just outside of the town. And that was that. What can be some of the steps that can be taken in order to prevent something like that from happening? What can a trust or an organization do who has the power to secure certain things do on their end to make sure that these things don't fail at such late stages?
Yeah, I think it's a challenge, and a lot of people struggle with this. And I think it's also the way that the flow of power works in government and in municipality. And we don't all have access to that information. We have an assumption that if we do X, Y will happen. And I think it's definitely trial and error. There's no workshopping or information around what the flow is, and also power changes continuously within local government, within municipality. It is definitely a challenge, because you can speak to one person on one day or have several meetings just to find out that that person doesn't have the actual power to assign or to commit to X, Y, and Z. The best way to always go about it is to have an MOU from the department or municipality that you are going to engage in, because that MOU becomes a document that is valid. It becomes something that's enforceable.
Right.
And I think we can document meetings as much as possible. We can do good minutes. We can do all the legwork, but without a commitment on paper, anything can fall apart very quickly. We also did a pilot project at a theatre in city of Ekurhuleni. We had dealt with the theatre management. We were going to do it at the theatre space, but it is not as simple as just working with a community arts centre. You have to get the permission from the city of Ekurhuleni, for example, and that has to come from the highest person there. Then there are all the protocols to follow. And I think the best thing to do from the start is to uncover through the meetings who has the approval power.
Right.
And to work towards the memorandums for that person to sign off an MOU. Without an MOU, anything at municipal level or city level can fall apart immediately. So I think that's very important. But if you don't know, you don't know, because you assume you're speaking to
the right people and,
exactly. And I think like a lot of artists go through this struggle and also go through, assumptions. And I think like that is the thing that kills a lot of great ideas, because you put so much energy and effort into building the concept, into getting the artist to get in, into getting the local people and businesses to support it, but it's for naught. And then that's where the frustration and the anger and the resentment starts building up, and the reluctance to want to go through that process again, because it's unclear where the failure was. So I feel you very deeply there. And even when you have the MOU, there is always movement. So it's not there's no easy, straightforward answer, but paperwork does help you. always plan for delays.
Yeah.
Like I think like that's just in general when, we're fortunate at Arts and Culture Trust that we work on different systems, so our timelines can be a lot more accurate. With government, if anything changes at a budget meeting or at a high-level meeting, it means that your funds even, or any commitments made, can be deferred 6 months, 12 months, and you'll still need to also deliver on that. So I think we always need to work with a plan B and with almost 2 or 3 different sets of timelines for actualizing what you need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. I think valuable lessons. I think like maybe a lot of times as young people, you miss the part of the MOU. We did have that in place. So it's funny that you brought it up that like even with that, certain things can still go wrong. It's almost like at times they just have no regard for it, right? As long as you just keep your side clean and they'll have to be held accountable for theirs on their part. But does the Arts and Culture Trust then provide the opportunity for young creators to, do the things that they want to do and put, events together or projects together without having to go through government? Or do you still need that link with government in some cases or most cases?
So I think that's the interesting part where artists need to define their business model. And I always say that, and we actually did a animation series on, how to diversify your portfolio and to not rely on government grants as your business model, obviously. And that, in fact, that should only be about 20% of your business model because it's not guaranteed ever. So I think it really, it depends on what you need. We provide opportunities through our programming. So we don't play in the grant making space anymore. But artists can come in with their proposals. They go through a development program with experts, with mentors, and then should they start proving a viable business plan that understands the implications, there is a cash investment that goes towards that project and an ongoing mentorship. And that's something that Nedbank supports us with in the Tutukisani program. And it's really around that entrepreneurial thinking and development alongside these projects instead of them being one-offs. Either what does this project unlock or enable for the next step, or is this a repeatable project that can generate income over a period of time? And we really try and support it from that angle because the once-offs are creative and great, but they don't progress into further steps.
Okay.
So I think it's an interesting way to look at it, and I definitely think artists need to uncover their business models in a much more proactive way. What is funded? What is earned? Where are the other applications sitting? Because you will soon then see if you're able to run this with or without government.
Yeah. I think what's very interesting about that is that a lot of the times, and maybe it's also just because of having the experience and knowing the mindset of a young creative who wants to build something for the long term, you go for those sort of short-term approaches. Oh, if I can get the government to fund this project, the money I make from that project will fund the next, and I can start building my long-term plans. But it's very great to hear and know that with the Arts and Culture Trust, there are programs actually in place that you got to qualify through the program, and with that it becomes a long-term development thing and not just a short once-off quick fix. And you mentioned that it comes with mentorship as well, which is fantastic.
I don't think there's enough of that, and I think we've started seeing ever since COVID, when we changed our strategy to become more enabling in the entrepreneurial sense, in that development sense outside of the grant format. Other arts organizations have also come along, and you can say, okay, is that competition? Should we be dominating that space? And I'm like, no, we need more and more and more of it, because one organization can't serve an entire nation of artists. Our government can't serve the entire nation of artists. So, I'm always of the philosophy that let's start the good ideas, let's build the models, But those that can do it better, faster, stronger, we must toy together. We can't try and own and lock in ideas. I think it's absolutely ridiculous, and we need to absolutely just share the knowledge that we have and try and connect the networks that we have, because there are not enough opportunities for us to even think we can be in competition with each other.
100%. So, Jessica, these programs sound so wonderful, right? And can we hear more about them, right? Like, do any of these programs have names or anything? Like, are there different types? Like, are there different time frames for each program?
Yeah, I mean, like, we've got such a fantastic bouquet, and I think one of the things artists complain about most in this country is why the age restriction.
Yes.
So, I mean, like, we really like to look at the whole journey of the artist, and our scholarship program, which is called the Akniloha Scholarship Program, has got 3 really fantastic corporate partners that have been with this program for, between 3 and 5 years. Nedbank Sun International, MTN Foundation, and they have such a strong mandate for youth development and innovation, and really looking at the upskilling of our youth. And this program does that. It takes artists, about, I think this year, 60 artists nationally on a training program of 3 months, where they really develop not only their craft, but their professional skills, their industry readiness, their portfolios. And it really looks at, what is it going to mean for you to step into the arts sector as a professional, as a young professional? The outcome of this is that we award 2 scholarships to a visual artist, performing artist, and this covers their entire undergraduate study in the arts. And that's very rare, because often scholarships will be 20 or 50K.
Yeah.
And I think it's very important that we support artists financially through that whole period. And from the trust perspective, that we offer the industry support, the insights, and also, opportunities that go with that. We also offer, for this program and for our alumni, and actually the sector as a whole, mental health services as well, placing a focus on mental well-being rather than just always the reactionary trauma side of it. It's like, how can we start nurturing that well-being that goes alongside it?
Yeah.
So this program really is for the young ones. It is to prepare them for tertiary. If they don't win the scholarship, that they have better applications, they become better candidates. And often we see from the training program that these kids either enter jobs, corporate jobs, start their own businesses, or get accepted to other universities. And I think that's really a testament to the readiness that the program prepares them for.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
so that's our youth demographic. And then our Tutukasani program, which really Nedbank is our flagship partner for this, is the entrepreneurial program. And this doesn't have an age restriction, because we know that innovation can happen at any point. And there are opportunities for our youth which are desperately needed.
Yeah.
But we also have artists that are now hitting 30 or 35 or 40, and they didn't have the benefit of the youth focus as deeply as the youth that are currently emerging, turning 18, 19. And those people have extreme value and knowledge. Those have been the fighters and the survivors, even the 50-year-olds. Like, they have so much knowledge to bring, but also weren't afforded the enabling information and structures and systems.
Yeah.
So that program really is just about, are you able to bring your craft to market? Are you able to grow it, sustain it, learn, diversify it? And can you engage in that conversation of sustaining and self-enabling yourself?
Yeah.
And I think that's really fantastic. So those are our 2 core programs, and then they are supported through our Humanitas Wellbeing Program and our Center of Excellence. So anyone that passes through the trust as an alumni, so whether you've been a participant or even a mentor or facilitator, is we really look at what kind of opportunities can we offer you, because we've got corporate partners.
Yeah.
There are corporate gigs, there are opportunities to perform, there are opportunities to create visual art, sell work, and it's really about connecting the dots from becoming emerging to being able to transact with what you're producing. And I think we've really grown and nurtured that, and we're seeing such excellent results from it.
Incredible. Bless you guys for sparing a thought for the OGs as well.
No, I mean, we're all in this together. I'm turning 40 this year, and yeah. I have to think about myself. If I wasn't in this role, and if I was still an artist in the sector, what would life look like for me and for my peers? Yeah. And I think it's very important because we have a lot of value to bring and to give. And I love that the trust not only takes care of the participants, but we have such rich alumni that we're able to bring them into facilitation roles. We're able to bring them into mentorship roles. And it really becomes a space where we can enable at different levels.
Yeah. So Jess, looking ahead, right? Is there a future? What does the future look like for anybody, in the arts and culture space, trying to make a career for themselves? Is it something still worth pursuing if you're young? Are there ways in which you can still enjoy a fruitful career in it?
Are people still watching Netflix?
Well,
are people still buying good clothing? Are people still listening to music?
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I think the fear around what will my child do is that's a taboo that's falling away. This depends on the individual, their grit, their commitment, their willingness to learn and be curious. I didn't have ambitions of being a CEO when I was a performer on stage, but the world's opened up for me in different ways, and my abilities have come a long way and placed me in a position like this. Not just that we're all going to be absorbed in executive roles, but there are those opportunities within the art sector. And I think if we're looking at the latest stats, we're contributing 4% to the GDP of our country, 10% of jobs. Those are staggering figures. Yeah. So people that say that there's no opportunity in the arts, it's like that's an illusion. We're on par with, if not passing, agriculture at this stage.
Wow. I did not know that. That's incredible.
Exactly. And I think like the perception around what the arts is also changing because the roles, it's not just the performer, it's not just the actor, it's not just the singer, it's not just the dancer. There's the entire ecosystem that lives around these functions. And we have thinkers, makers, writers, planners, administrators, project managers, finance, art direct. It's vast. You know what it's like just to put together a segment like this. It just depends on how we upskill and educate our artists around the possibilities in their own sector as well.
Yes.
And the jobs that are coming because the world we are living in is changing.
Right. So I think what contributes to that fear, yes, like there might be some discouragement from home and things like that. You can't have a proper career and things like that. But that stigma is changing, like you've mentioned. That narrative is falling away a little bit. But there's always this notion that it's very saturated. I mean, it was the creative industry was saturated when I first entered into it. I can't imagine what it's like now. You probably deal with hundreds and thousands of applications, people wanting some sort of support for something that they want to do, so perhaps that is what creates this little bit of fear that it's just too tough. There's just too many things. Like, is there enough to go around for everybody? And with it being so saturated, what would somebody need to do to sort of have a different appeal about them, or to stick out from the rest so that they can, have a way forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's definitely how seriously you take what you do. So there can be many actors, but only so many professionals. And to understand that is a journey and a pathway. And I think artists it's okay to have that dream of being a star, of being the anomaly, of being, the unicorn. Like there's nothing wrong with that. We all have that feeling and that thing, but you have to understand how to play this game. You have to understand how to treat people. You have to understand how to be a professional. And those are things you have to practice in. You have to be willing to learn and engage. And really, it's only the people that take themselves seriously, conduct themselves seriously, behave like decent human beings and build those connections and relationships in life that has lasting careers. It might be a bit harder at the start, but there is a thing to say about the endurance of the profession, because anyone at this stage can be a star on TikTok, but are you going to know that person's name in 2 weeks' time or in 3 weeks' time? And I think we need to understand that we are not necessarily those people, even though that might form a teeny part of our portfolio, because we need to consider our ecosystem. is what is the end goal, and what am I strategically doing to get there, and from who am I learning, and where am I learning, and how do I conduct myself so that people will want to work with me in future, and how do I work on my craft so that I know my skill is solid, that I'm always ready. I'm not just ready when there's a call. I'm always ready. And I think if we can instill that in our young people, and they get their portfolios up to scratch and they are ready and not waiting, that is what's going to give them the upper hand.
Right. So like, if you want to play the long game and last in this, there's a little bit more that goes on. There's a little bit more required than just being a social media influencer or content creator. It's a little bit deeper than that, yeah?
Totally. And there's nothing wrong, like I said, with that. That's a part of the ecosystem. And it's a way into the business, which is really fantastic. But you have to also really understand what your end goal is. And I think a lot of people get stuck there. They don't know yet. Obviously, if you're young, you have an idea, but you're not quite sure. And I think it's okay. Like, your youth is to experiment. Your youth is to play, to find the passion, to find that thing that you can't let go of. But to know that if you are taking this seriously, if you want to make money with this thing, like, that's hard work. It's not I'm just on a show and I'm rich. It's consistent work every day.
Absolutely. So, Jess, it's been fantastic, chatting to you. Could go on for hours and hours. Trust me, there's so many more questions and things like that. But yeah, just before rounding up, are there any other messages or anything that you have for the youth? Somebody wanting to break out, or maybe even plug the Arts and Culture Trust. Like, where do we apply? What channels do we go through?
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, we actually have an opportunity right now, which is the Aknioloha Scholarship Program. You can find it on our socials. We marked it quite widely, but it's on our website, www.act.org.za/Nyaloha. And Nyaloha is a Sesotho word. It means to rise. And that's, the opportunity we're trying to afford our youth. And I'd say, like, start early with that application. This is not just a poll that you're sending in. You need to prepare some things. You really need to take time to be considered, because it is competitive. Like you said, there is saturation, and therefore you need to be ready to be a cut above the rest. And then we also post many of our opportunities on our social pages, but we also do like share and care, because we're so connected in the sector. We really like to work with our industry partners and share as many opportunities as possible, not just our own. I think like that's something powerful that platforms can do, that, if people know what's out there, they can apply. If they don't know, they don't know. So we really try and leverage our followings to do that. But Nyaloha at the moment, please look out for that. Tutukesani will be a bit later in the year. We will advertise that launch date. It will also be online through our website. And it's just under our programs tab. And we just have so many incredible people that we work with, so many incredible opportunities. And I just want to say, if somebody can't solve all your problems, ask them if they know somebody else. And, just orientate yourself. I think it's so important. And don't get disgruntled, because you're going to have to learn to defeat the no's and get out on top and make your way forward. So keep asking who, keep asking where, keep asking when. I think that's the only way to do it. And if you show that energy to the universe works on action. It will see your intention. It will see your words. Those things will eventually become available to you.
100%. Jess, it's been fantastic once again. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope that we'll develop a friendship from you, and find a way to work together to make our country a little bit of a better place. Certainly in the arts and culture space, where we're so heavily invested in. It's one of our core values is to help the youth within the space. So really looking forward to seeing how we can go about in doing that together.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been so lucky. It's like not often that one can just sit and talk and be human and share the stuff. And it does feel like, a friendship already. And just thank you for the work that you're doing. I think it's so important to have the conversations, to share it, to see your passion as well. Let's make beautiful things. Let's make this world a happier, more beautiful place together. I love that. And have me back anytime.
There we go. 100%. Jessica Denyschen. She told me, say say it like a Jamaican and you'll be all right. So
I love that. Was on point.
there we go.
Awesome.
So, ladies and gents, so from Mzansi to the world, we hope that you have been fed, and please remember to always keep on coming back, and so that we can help you ignite your light so that you may always burn it bright. Stay plugged in with us here on EXC-i8. Aye?
Love
Thanks,
it.
Jess.
Thanks, man. Yeah, awesome.
There we go.
Thank you. So refreshing to have like an intelligent conversation, because often like the radio interviews are so flat.